Okay. All right, guys, welcome. Thanks for joining this session. This is our fourth and final episode in our October webinar series about common change drivers for small to mid-sized businesses. And today, it's all about an inevitable change, the Telstra ISDN shutdown. So while you're just jumping on, I'll just quickly introduce the speakers and then we'll be away. So we have Naren McClung, our Group CTO at Viatek. Naren is responsible for the technology strategy at Viatek and has actually just returned from a road trip in regional Victoria where he spent time talking to customers, many of whom were asking about connectivity options and the journey to the cloud. Naren is joined by Roy Franco, Sales and Marketing Director at Access4. Access4 are leaders in the UCaaS space, offering the most advanced deployment of BroadSoft technology in Australia. Roy is very much committed to product development and innovation at Access4, so I'm sure he'll have some good insights on where the telco market is heading and how businesses can be ahead of the game. And manning our chat station today, we have Peter Farrow. He's a senior technical consultant at Viatek. I sit next to Peter in the office, and he spends a lot of his day demoing and solutioning the Cloud PBX and Cloud ISDN solutions. So don't be shy in sending him your questions. We want you to get the most out of this session as possible. Okay, Naren, you ready?
Yep.
Over to you.
All right. So look, as Prue said, this webinar series has really been about business change, and business change in the context of emerging technologies that we're seeing huge uptake for, technologies that really fit our mold for software-defined capabilities. So really happy to be talking about this topic in particular. It's always great when you've got a catalyst for change. Now, we love a catalyst for change for obvious reasons, but first and foremost, it's about having a conversation. And it's about sort of, I guess, opening people's eyes to new capabilities and things that they may not have thought about. And that's perfectly reasonable when you're running a business and you're thinking about what you need to do to run that business. Sometimes a little change in the marketplace is a really good way to have a conversation about new capabilities. And this is very much one of those. So, like it or hate it, ISDN, so one of these sort of dinosaur type telephony capabilities is now expiring, as is PSTN. So these are sort of legacy, telephony capabilities that are now reaching their end of life. The NBN is certainly helping with that. So like it or hate it, and whether you have access to the NBN, I certainly do not currently. It's helping to pave the way for that conversation. As is SD-WAN technologies. It was actually a webinar we delivered a couple of weeks ago with key vendor of ours, VeloCloud. And what we love about SD-WAN is doing a number of things. SD-WAN is giving visibility to really what poor bandwidth looks like. The classic scenario of you don't know what you don't know. So we love how VeloCloud is able to expose what poor quality bandwidth looks like, as well as a means to remediate and address that. Now, the reason why I mention SD-WAN, it's all about confidence. So confidence in being able to deliver services over the wire. And what we're here to talk about today is a really prime example of one of those. So as bandwidth improves and as the quality of bandwidth improves as well, particularly with the complement of SD-WAN capabilities, confidence in services delivered over the wire starts to become better and improved, and particularly if you look at really obvious services that we see a huge uptake for across our customer base, services like Exchange Online as part of Office 365 is really becoming de facto, it's becoming the norm. That's a classic software as a service capability. And what we find is that as confidence tends to grow, delivering services over the wire, and as you realize that, yep, my email's working just fine, delivered over the wire, it's very easy to have a conversation around other capabilities like platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and for Viatek, we also find pretty significant uptake in our desktop as a service offering as well. And these things tend to flow. They tend to flow as you trust the delivery of services over the wire. It's very easy to then consider other capabilities that you might be able to run over that wire, particularly if you have visibility of how you're using it, how you can control it, the quality of that service. Is it resilient, and do you have spare bandwidth to introduce new services? So with that, moving your phone system to the cloud, and particularly via a staged approach, and Roy's going to talk about Cloud ISDN in particular, is a very logical and safe move. And it's something that, I always like a service or a capability of Viatek that doesn't take much promotion. You have to take that with a grain of salt, given what we're doing today. But these things have been really rolling off the shelf for us because, A, there is that catalyst for change, ISDN, PSTN services going end of life. But it's also the ease of migration to those capabilities as well. And that's one of the key reasons why we've partnered with Access4 is they have a really fantastic means of engagement, really low risk engagement. And as I said, we can break that up into really logical chunks. So with that, I want to hand over to Roy. He's going to talk to you about Cloud ISDN and how Access4 go about that. Thanks, Roy.
Thanks, Darren. So everyone, as Darren discussed, it's almost impossible to talk about IT these days without hearing the word cloud mentioning, and that really represents the change in the way people want to consume IT services. So no longer do we see customers wanting to go and buy expensive equipment, capitalize it, depreciate it, and run effectively an IT shop internally. They simply want to be able to consume a service, whether it's software, it's platform infrastructure, as and when they need it, and as their business changes, that they can simply change the requirements of what they're procuring from a supplier. And cloud telephony is no different. We're seeing huge uptake in cloud telephony, and it's starting to form just part of the normal cloud adopted IT that we see people take from their providers. If we just go to the next slide, Prue, and there's really sort of three compelling things that we see coming out. One is the typical cloud adoption. As I said before, more and more people are looking to consume as a service. One of the big things that you'll find, particularly in the voice world, is that the voice codecs that we use to provide voice over IP have continued to improve, and really that confidence, as Darren mentioned, in terms of what you can deliver over the wire. Voice just isn't as fragile as people once thought it was to be able to deliver over an existing network. I always say to people, you can pick up your mobile phone and make a call using a WhatsApp application to the other side of the world over public internet. So moving your telephony into your data network or into your corporate internet connection, nowadays is just as viable as running it over dedicated links. NBN is absolutely providing a compelling event. And it's getting people to think about, well, I've had this phone system in place for a while and I need to do something about it. But more importantly, what's happening internally with businesses is that there is a change in how organizations work and how they're structured. And there's this huge movement we call workplace flexibility where customers, employees are looking for better ways to achieve something. So you often hear the term, work is something I do, not a place I go. That's never been more true than it is now. There's a couple of driving factors for that. One is change in demographics in employees' businesses. So by 2020, 54% of employees will be what they call millennials. And these are people that have grown up with internet and smartphones and devices where being able to do work is something they can do almost anywhere. So we partner with a company called Juggle Strategies, and they really help organizations through that planning process at an HR policy and organizational structure level around how do I embrace flexible working and how do I make it a strategic asset in my business to be able to make my employees more loyal, more productive, and make improve my customer experience. And collaboration technology forms a part of that discussion. Your PBX or your communication tools are no longer just about making phone calls. More and more, they're about messaging, they're about presence, they're about being able to get access to audio or video collaboration or conferencing tools or desktop tools when they need it. And more often than not, people aren't located in office when they need it. So when you think about if I'm working from home and I'm using my phone as my business landline, it makes sense for that call to be sent to me directly from the cloud or the network to my phone, rather than it being routed back into my corporate office or trombone through a PBX on site where I've either got bandwidth or power or reliability issues, and therefore I'm getting a poor service. if I'm out and about, it makes sense that I'm directly connected to my phone or my workspace as I need to. And we see more and more of that in other cloud applications. And we see more and more of that in terms of the need for telephony to be cloud-driven to support workplace flexibility. And if we just go to the next slide, the most recent data coming out of SEEK shows absolutely that employees now consider workplace flexibility more important than pay. So they would prefer to work for an organisation that is flexible, that is agile, that gives them the tools to succeed, than just straight up get more money. Naren, what are you seeing in terms of flexibility in workplaces?
Yeah, look, it's fascinating, really, in that I think it's in part derived by the consumer expectation as well, right? So if you think about what we as consumers and what we expect from our technology providers, we expect to be able to turn things on when we want, consume how we want, pay as we want, importantly, change our services in a flexible way that suits us, right, on our terms. And I'm definitely seeing that manifest in the business, and it's almost flowing. So, when we talked a little bit about confidence in moving from SaaS to platform as a service to infrastructure as a service and moving down the stack sort of further away from services as you directly consume, is this sort of desire for agility and flexibility. And it's really probably the primary reason why Viatek as a vendor has really almost entirely embraced the software-defined methodology, right? Because we know our customers want that, and for us to stay relevant as a managed service provider, we need to be able to respond to change in the same way as we would expect as consumers at home. So yeah, flexibility is absolutely key, and it's critical for us to stay relevant as a managed service provider.
Right. Cool. And I think if you look at the statistics that come out around workplace flexibility, the latest Harvard Business Reviews indicate that the greatest drivers of organisational performance are communication and employee satisfaction. And we're seeing now that better communication tools, better flexibility in communication tools through collaboration tools, and the ability to give employees flexibility are key to their engagement. So the question is for businesses, if you're not looking at how you deliver workplace flexibility with your current infrastructure, it's a conversation that you should start to be having, and it's one of many conversations that you need to deal with at the moment. And the big one that we're talking about at the moment is obviously that the ISDN shutdown is coming. One of the things that we're seeing, and particularly from the large telcos, and I'm happy to name the Telstras and Optus of the world, is that they are going to customers with the view that this telephony stuff is a black magic. It can only be done by a telco, and you need to move now, you need to move urgently, and here is the upgrade path for you to go into the cloud, and by the way, it's a 5-year contract. It shouldn't be a long-term contract or strategic decision to be able to move your telephony into the cloud, and it should be something that businesses can do at their own speed and their own pace, to give them time to think, to give them time to maneuver and to understand it's not just my telephony platform, it's now a collaboration platform. And how do I go about making the right decisions for my business in the next 2 months, 6 months, 6 years? What is that going to look like? What do I need to deliver for my employees? So through Cloud ISDN, what we're looking to deliver for customers is the ability to simply move, if we go to the next slide, Prue, is to simply move your voice from being an ISDN circuit to being delivered over your current data or internet connection. Your PBX still has ISDN. You don't need to make any changes to it. And more importantly, you don't need to sign any long-term contracts for technology changes up front. You can deal with the issue at hand, which is copper no longer exists, and then you can go into a consultation period with the team at Viatek around what is the best cloud journey for me. And we've written a white paper there that talks about how you migrate to the cloud slowly and how you do it in a way that controls the risks and the outcomes of your business. So how does that work? Next slide. So today, a typical customer will be running a PBX and even if they've had it for 10 years, it probably works and it does the job it needs to. And for most businesses, if it ain't broke, don't throw it out. And that's what we see a lot, particularly in small to medium businesses. Phone system does the job it needs to today. So stage one is we would simply come in and install our cloud ISDN product. The next slide, Prue. And that product includes a device that we deliver on site, and that device sits in line between the existing ISDN network and your internet connection and starts to route the calls over your data connection or your internet connection. So there are no changes required to your PBX. Incoming calls are delivered to our device, routed back to our network so we can route them properly and sent back to the PBX. Outgoing calls are delivered straight out across our network over that device. And we do a number of things with that device. One, we enable failover or rollback to ISDN if the current data or internet connection doesn't support the type of bandwidth that we need. And we can then work with the customers on changing that internet or providing a different way forward. More importantly, there are some things that the data that the voice traffic needs to have to work on what we call SIP or newer digital telephony networks that an old PBX might not be providing. And what that access forward device does is it detects those gaps in this transmission and it fills in those gaps and makes sure that the voice can be routed across newer PSTN networks. So if we go to stage 3, so during that process, we set up diversions, we set up number porting, all that sort of stuff, and after that 30-day period, we can simply decommission the ISO. If we just go back up one slide, went too far. So once that first 30-day period is finished, we simply decommission the ISDN service, and we continue to run on your PBX delivered over the cloud ISDN service. That then enables customers to be able to run what we call a hybrid or journey to cloud adoption, where you can continue to run your PBX and in the same enterprise, the same number routing and everything, you can start to run some cloud services. And those cloud services might be, I need a new IVR, I want to turn on some call recording, or I want to turn on some users with cloud PBX and remote offices. What it allows you to do is allows you to test the take-up or adoption in your business of cloud services, and more importantly, allows you to de-risk that change where you can slowly move people over to the cloud without there being this big bang approach of having to decommission a PBX all in one hit. What we find customers do sometimes is they simply, as handsets become old and need replacing, they replace them with a new cloud PBX or SIP handset, and they slowly migrate all their users across without having to do it all in one hit. Eventually then, once customers are happy, they can move to a cloud PBX where everything is delivered in the cloud, and they move away from owning or managing any infrastructure whatsoever. So that process, we generally do that over a month, and what that enables us to do is just to de-risk that change and do it at a pace that customers are happy with, and they can control the speed at which they do that at any point in time. So I'll hand back to Naren or to anyone else if they got any questions.
Sure. Thanks, Roy.
Okay. But we have had a couple of questions come through, so I hope you don't mind. I'll ask them, and anybody can jump in and provide the answer. So, will there be any interruption of services?
So I'll take that. So typically no. So the reason we do that is what we do during the first instance, and let's assume it's a Telstra ISDN service. The calls coming off the Telstra network hit our device, and we can route them to where they need to be. We then set up diversions, exchange-based diversions in Telstra's network to route the calls to us directly. So at any point in time, the numbers or your phone numbers exist in the Telstra network and the Access 4 network. And when porting happens, Telstra simply stops seeing numbers being, calls being delivered to them, and they don't need to route them to us. The calls are delivered directly to us. And because our network already knows about your phone numbers and knows where they belong and how to route them, that change happens generally pretty seamlessly for most customers. The advantage of that is twofold. One, there's no outage, but two, we don't need to book a specific porting or outage window, and we don't need to try and do that out of hours when often it costs a lot more and there's no engineers available, on the losing carrier side to actually reverse support or anything if it goes wrong. We can generally manage ports during the day when we know that, whether it's Telstra, Optus, TVG, whoever's losing the number, we know that their engineers are, on call or on shift, and we can get hold of them.
Cool. All right. Another question here. What happens if I get bad call quality? Roy, did you want to take that one as well?
Yeah. So that first 30 days, so what we typically do is, we take a couple of weeks to install the device. We will typically run that device for 30 days. And two reasons. One is to deal with the porting and make sure people aren't losing calls. But most importantly, we're actually conditioning the line. We are slowly ensuring that the line or the internet connection or data connection has quality or characteristics to support voice carriage. And we'll know that generally within the first week. And we can roll back. One, we can roll back to ISDN straight away if need to remotely. But two, we can then work with the customer on, whether it's a different technology or whether we route the calls via different means. But we absolutely have a fail-back path that says, at any point in time, if we see, really bad call quality, we can roll back to ISDN and the customer is not affected whilst we work out what potentially was causing that quality or what the other path might be going forward.
Indeed, Roy. And look, another avenue we've got as well is just going back to the SD-WAN technology discussion, is that we can absolutely introduce, particularly VeloCloud SD-WAN capabilities, so that we can aggregate connectivity at a given site location so that you get that great conditioning of service to condition out things like latency issues, jitter, packet loss, etc., which is very good. And of course, the other obvious one is a prioritization of voice traffic as well. So all of those things very complementary to what you've just talked about.
A bit of a segue here on that same topic of WAN. What sort of WAN, what's the minimum requirement WAN that's required? Roy, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, so typically we call it a SIP voice circuit will require 100 kilobits per channel. So if you've got a 10-channel ISDN, you'll need a meg. If you've got 20, you need 2 megs. You need 30 channels, you need 3 megs. And again, talking about SD-WAN, what we find is customers using SD-WAN use bandwidth more efficiently, and you can also then generate get a more guaranteed delivery of those packets to site. In saying that, we generally haven't seen many issues with internet connections these days, but we definitely do see a better ability to provide an end-to-end SLA with customers that have invested in SD-WAN technology into their sites.
Cool. I've got 2 more questions, unless any more comes through. First one, can I keep my numbers?
Yes. So all numbers, or most numbers in Australia, should be able to be ported, and there's regulations around number portability and being able to port. So we would simply port your customers' existing numbers from the existing carrier over to Access 4. That process can take up to 6 weeks, but we generally do that in the back end. As I said before, we can set up exchange diversions, i.e. within Telstra's network or Optus' network, and the customer can move on straight away, and we can port in the background as a more of an operational task as opposed to a customer impacting event that needs to have an outage.
Cool. And you may have already answered this one, just in that answer there, Roy. How long does a typical deployment take?
So typical deployment will take a couple of weeks to install the device, and generally most of that is getting the device to site. and then obviously we'll run it in that parallel mode for the first 30 days, and then we'll transition to just running straight over a data intent or SD-WAN connection from then on.
Cool. All right. So no questions through. Thank you, Roy, for that. Thank you, Naren. Did you have any round up on?
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, it's like anything, we're always open to questions. So appreciate that this may well be a complicated topic. If you want us to talk through what you have in relation to cloud ISDN, cloud PBX, or any aspect of this service offering, then just reach out to us. We're more than happy to respond to questions and have a chat.
Cool. I've included the email address of vtsales@viatek.com.au. Naren's across that DL, so he's happy to jump in on any questions that you have and continue the conversation. You'll receive a copy of this session, plus the ISDN white paper that Roy mentioned within the next day. And the offer of the moment is a 30-day trial cloud PBX deployment. So if you're interested in that, please contact your account manager, or again, vtsales@viatek.com.au. All right. So I think that's us. Thank you, Roy, again. Thank you, Naren. That concludes our October CTO webinar series. All episodes are now on the website and available for download. So that includes the SD-WAN, the Defend and Protect, the Simplify Hybrid IT, and today's ISDN Shutdown. So I hope you found them valuable, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you all. Cheers.
Thank you.